All right, hello everybody. If there's one thing I dislike more than death by PowerPoint, it's talking about myself. However, I was encouraged to do so. And in uncomfortable situations like this, I'll try to use humor, even though as advised by Captain John Slouse, pilots aren't funny. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a go. How many of you remember the instant you first knew you were gonna be a pilot? For me, it was in high school. I took one of those aptitude tests that suggest what occupation you're supposedly suited for. When I got the results back, it gave me 3 potential careers: lawyer, accountant, and a pilot. I was great at debating, but I'm not so good of a storyteller. My parents could always see straight through me, so I immediately ruled out being a lawyer. To be honest, becoming a first-generation pilot seemed to be an insurmountable task, so I had never considered it before. I'm from a small town in central Washington, Thorpe to be exact. For those familiar with the area, yes, there is more than just a fruit stand there. There is actually a school where I graduated with 7 people in my class. That's right, 7. Most folks become laborers or farmers and rarely ever leave the area. My father was a union route driver for Hostess and Wonder Bread, and after many times of delivering Twinkies, cupcakes, and ho-hos with him, at dark 30, with split days off, he suggested if I didn't want to be doing this kind of work, especially this early in the morning, I hate mornings, I needed to go to college. I'm not going to lie, I enjoy occasionally phoning him on my 4 a.m. Eastern wake-up calls just to remind him that he promised me if I earned a college degree, I wouldn't have to work these hours. But here I am. Needless to say, the more I looked at becoming a pilot and having a university with a flight program in my home county, the more intrigued I became. Around my junior year, my brother-in-law's father took me up for a ride in his 2-seater Scout. That was the moment for me. I'd caught the bug. I ended up going to Central Washington University, but keeping that third aptitude test in mind, I minored in business management and enrolled in finite mathematics and accounting courses. That served me well as Secretary-Treasurer at JetBlue and now as ALPA's Vice President for Finance and Treasurer. As a side note, I helped start the ALPA ACE Club at Central when I was an MEC officer at JetBlue, and I couldn't agree with Tyler more that it's essential in this day and age for these mentorships, and I'm happy to see our ACE Club volunteers joining us today. That's a long way of explaining why I love this job. Tyler and I hosted the Secretary-Treasurer's Conference a few weeks ago where I said it takes a different breed to fill these positions. It can sometimes be a position where you're voluntold, but then again, to be honest, that's how I started my job here at JetBlue, but for the right person, it's great. It's perhaps our union's most thankless, behind-the-scenes type job, but also one of the most important, I believe. It's not just the subject matter either. I truly love helping and serving our pilots. My most favorite events, though, I have to say, are pickets. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend 2 of them. MEC politics are set aside, and everyone is in unity and solidarity for one purpose: to let management know we are not happy with the way negotiations are going. When I ran for this position last year, I campaigned on change. Most of us up here did, in fact. It is my belief that there are a lot of things we can do better at the national level for our pilots and volunteers. We definitely got change at the national level. It's the first time since 1990 that there is an all-new national officer team leading ALPA, and you'll see the results of the desired change today. One change that we, of course, can't take all the credit for is the inclusion of our soon-to-be newest pilot group, Air Canada. I'd like to preemptively welcome their pilots and their new MEC leaders, and I look forward to working with all of you. But to knock on wood, you won't be the new kids on the block for long. However, our organizing team has already numbers 41 and 42 going through the process. Or, as my Canadian colleague Tim Perry likes to say, process. It's a great time to be an ALPA member for sure. As stated earlier, as great as ALPA is, our goal is to make it even better. At the Executive Council last month, we considered 56 resolutions. 56. Many of them were recommended by the Structure, Services, and Finance Review Committee, or SAFER, headed up by the VP of Finance, which is me. SAFER was stood up in 2018 and tasked, generally speaking, with how to spend our pilots' money and how to get more people involved in volunteering. and to bring our spending limits and restrictions into the 21st century. You'll be voting on a number of resolutions recommended by SAFER this week, and will be able to learn more in the committee work. Many of them are updating financial limits that haven't been increased in decades. We added language to these recommendations that mandates an annual adjustment based on consumer price index so things stay current. We're looking at ways for local councils to use their funds less restrictively. Currently, many councils can't spend their funds to meet the needs of their pilots due to outdated policy. There are a couple of updates to the new contract implementation grants available to MECs through the MCF. We have a recommendation to allow pilots to use credit cards for dues reconciliation obligations, and we have a resolution that will allow using stipends for volunteer work at the national level. Finally, you'll see a resolution that will allow National to provide information and financial resources to assist pilots who encounter problematic state or provincial laws. The Executive Council will be the backstop that determines if the issue will affect a significant number of pilots in multiple locales across the association. Recent examples of this include the state of Washington's law regarding an added payroll tax for long-term care, or another example when care became an issue in California. And we're just getting started. Going forward, I will be tasking the group to review duesable income as it relates to retirement funds. More specifically, funds earmarked for retirement returned to pilots in cash because of government-imposed limits and our current practice of charging dues on them. Ultimately, our pilot group should be striving to achieve other retirement funding vehicles in their CBAs, but in the meantime, we probably shouldn't be charging a tax on our retirements. I can't thank the members of the SAFER Committee enough, nor the Finance Department, for their hard work in evaluating, studying, and proposing these resolutions that will make ALPA even better for our pilots than it already is. ALPA truly is already a great association, and we're currently in great shape. Our goal is to build on the success we've seen in recent history, and while I'm not a fan of PowerPoints, as I stated at the beginning, I have a small number to share in order to update you on ALPA's current strong financial status. As you see here, the association finished last year technically with a net deficit of $19.3 million. Contrary to popular belief, it wasn't Steve's cookie fund that was the culprit on this one. It was due solely to the drops in investment value. The same reduction I'm sure all of you saw in your personal investments in 2022. Just like we budget conservatively, we also invest conservatively, and those numbers are already rebounding. This shows our year-to-date finances through March 31st. Our net income is at $37.1 million, and as I stated before, our investments have rebounded, showing a net gain of $14.6 million so far this year. There's a lot to look at here, but these next few slides showcase our dues revenue and expenses, actual versus budgeted, and last year and this year to date shown together. Here, we see the monthly dues total for 2022 and 2023. The dotted lines are our 2022 dues budgeted in orange and actual in blue. As you can see, we remained above budget dues throughout the year. The same holds true for 2023 through March as well, with actual dues in green outpacing the budgeted dues in yellow. That large bump in actual dues in March reflects the retro, non-retro, one-time payment of the Delta pilots in there received their new contract. You can see the same effect on this slide, as our actual dues slowly but surely exceeded our budgeted dues projection throughout last year. And even with higher budgeted dues projection for the current year, we're still tracking above budgeted year to date. We'll review the same exercise now with our budgeted and actual expenses. Focus first on 2022. The orange line again is budgeted expenses. The blue line is actual expenses. You can see our budgeted expenses and actual expenses tracking pretty closely together throughout the year. That bump in actual expenses at the end of the year there is due primarily to the board of directors meeting. This year, we're continuing to see a pent-up demand to visit MECs and attend events, and so our actual expenses are coming in above budget. With so many of our MECs in the final stages of contract negotiation, that increases costs as well. We expect those two lines to merge closer together, if not overlap, as the year continues. And again, we look at the cumulative year for expenses. With the fluctuating month-by-month numbers last year, at the end of the year, our actual expenses were just slightly higher than our budgeted expenses. Year-to-date for 2023 looks to be somewhat similar so far, but that could change as the year progresses. This slide shows our numbers from 2019 pre-pandemic through today. I share this to show just how well we were able to weather that storm. It took a lot of hard work and is due largely in part to the payroll protection program, but we worked hard to make sure that was properly implemented too. In order, you see the budgeted dues, actual dues, budgeted expenses, and actual expenses for 2019, 20, 21, and 22, and year-to-date in 2023. In each year, you can see clearly that our actual dues came in higher than our budgeted dues, which is a good thing, and sometimes it's significantly. And while last year and this year to date show actual expenses outpacing the budget, we came in under budgeted expenses each of the previous 3 years. Part of that, of course, was due to not holding meetings and not incurring associated costs. As already mentioned, that final set of bars shows that we have actual dues already outpacing budget, while expenses trend close to even. Moving on from the budget, I want to share the figures for our major contingency fund, the MCF, probably our most talked about topic, to be honest. I wanted to highlight the growth of the MCF throughout the last half of the last decade, and then how we've been able to maintain a balance of more than $100 million for the past 4 years. Last year, we implemented the MCF Contract Implementation Program as we explored new ways to use the MCF. To date, 11 MECs have received grants from this program that provides funding to support contract implementation and grievances in the post-contract year, when often funds aren't readily available to ensure that your new agreement is adhered to. These grants are provided to every pilot group upon signing a contract with no strings attached and nothing to pay back. We're already receiving positive feedback from our MEC leaders who have received this grant. One told us this grant has made all the difference to us. One MEC got literally 10 years worth of dues income as the grant. It was awesome for that MEC. I'm not saying that it gave them a huge, surplus, but it allows them to do things that they maybe not have been able to do in the past. While another said, I can't express what an advantage this is. As your pilot groups finalize contracts, talk with your finance liaisons to get the details on your grant. As I mentioned earlier, you'll be voting on a recommendation from the SAFER Committee allowing expansion of this fund for our pilot groups who complete significant updates to their contract outside of Section 6 or the formal CBA process. We recognize that not all pilot groups follow the same process with their contracts, so we want to address that and make sure it's available for everyone. Finally, we have our operating contingency fund, the OCF. The OCF is one of the great benefits of a pilot group belonging to ALPA. It's your backstop, your financial overdraft protection, if you will, should circumstances put you over your MEC budget. In 2022, 6 MECs received funds from the operating fund to support their negotiations, and 8 MECs accessed the contingency fund to support deficit account balance conditions experienced by their MEC. For 2023, 6 MECs have received initial operating fund allocations to support upcoming negotiations. And there have been 4 MEC contingency fund allocations year to date. One last thing that I forgot that I need to mention is the building committee. We're still working on it right now. We're in the process of staffing this committee, and hopefully we'll be able to schedule some meetings before the next next executive board meeting and address you on any things we have to report back. It's an exciting time to be an airline pilot and ALPA member. In recent memory, there hasn't been a more lucrative time to enter the industry as a pilot. Pilots today have more opportunities and a brighter future than any generation before them. They can pick where they want to start their career, and most will have their choice of which major to fly for. New contracts and LOAs are such that you can make a career at just about any destination, and that's due in no small part to the work of ALPA over the past generation. I look forward to working with this officer team for the next 3.5 years and seeing what we can accomplish. As great as ALPA is today, together with all of you, we can make it even better. And as Tyler said, if you have any questions at all about finance stuff or any recommendations for Safer, you know where to reach me. I'm pretty quick at getting back. Thank you for the opportunity.